Alright, so in today's video, I want to talk about cross-cultural near-death experiences. I'm most likely gonna start a new playlist in the channel, where I'm gonna be going in depth into probably not just near-death experiences, but altered states of consciousness as a whole. And I'm gonna be reading the stories and going in depth because I realize that going in depth into these stories can give us these little clues and can really help us understand what's happening. And when we see these patterns going on and on and on, it helps us build the structure of what all of this means. I've been writing a book recently. This is gonna be my second book. The first one is The Ghost of Jesus, and the second one I'm gonna be giving more information about it in the future, but mainly is some of my conclusions based on being helped by the research, which I'm gonna be mentioning in the of what's happening, what's going on, some of my theories of what's happening behind the near-death experience phenomenon, and what might be really going and what might be the underlying reality of the whole thing. But going in depth into these stories will really help us trying to see what's really happening here. So now I'm making this video about cross-cultural near-death experiences, specifically Asian near-death experiences, more specifically from a defined region in Thailand. This video that I'm making, maybe not all of them, and this new playlist that I'm gonna be doing are based on actual scientific research, but this one is an actual research which was published, which contains 11 cases of near-death experiences. I make this argument because in one of my previous videos where I talk about near-death experiences and how the theme of the live review can give us a lot of insight into what actually might be happening, and how it seems that individual life experiences have value, have worth, have a purpose behind them, despite that they might be just an illusion and there's only one consciousness, there's only one of us. But these individual experiences that we go through, they have a very specific purpose, and how there's meaning behind life itself. I'm gonna link that somewhere on the screen. So I always welcome positive and respectful arguments in all my social media, and somebody made the comment that this was not a reliable source to make an argument basing ourselves in the live review, given that in Eastern or Asian near-death experiences, the concept of the being of light or the light and the live review are not present. And this person was correct in a sense, which is why I'm making these videos, and I'm gonna be making a series of videos on this very specific theme, because he is right. The live review is not a present theme in near-death experiences. Does that mean that the live review is just a hallucination? Does it really not matter? Is it not really an important theme of them? Well, things might be a little bit more complicated than it seems. There is the mention in most of the experiences of some sort of live review, or how they're calling it, a quote-unquote judgment. But it seems that in these stories, people don't go all the way through the near-death experience. They're often recalled back, as is often common also in Western stories. So I'm gonna be going into why is it that in Asian near-death experiences, people are not having a live review, and the conclusion might be a little bit more complex than most people might think. There's actually live reviews going on. So before I move forward, I would like to remind you that if you want to join the growing discussion on consciousness and would like to be notified on the latest scientific discoveries and theories surrounding this topic and how they connect to ancient mythologies and philosophies, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, as I'll try to upload at least one video per week as I continue with the outline. Alright, so here's a study that I'm talking about, 11 Thai near-death experiences. Now this is a website, this is a blog post, like I've been saying. I keep getting that argument that people saying, oh, this is just a website, anybody can write anything they want, and so on and so forth. Yes, this is a website, this is a blog post. I am using it because it's easier to see and to read and to navigate than going into the PDF, which I'm gonna link as well. of the whole thing, the actual study in the Journal of Near-Death Studies. So I'm just doing it for comfort and not because I follow all of these blog sites, which some of them are really interesting, but it's just easier to read. But I'm going to post both of them. So this is from the researcher's name is Todd Murphy. Here you can find some of the information. This material is adjunct to this publication, Todd Murphy Near-Death Experiences in Thailand, Journal of Near-Death Studies, March 2001. So you click it, you got the PDF. I'm going to link both below. This is an actual study. This is actual research on near-death experiences from Eastern countries, specifically in this one, Thailand, which has some very specific things related to the religion and the beliefs and the way that these people were sort of isolated religiously, and they have very peculiar near-death experiences. So now one of the things that I'm gonna start to point out as I start to make this argument is this is 2001. As of the making of this video in 2022, it's been 20 years, even a little bit more. Back then, even the whole theme, the whole concept of near-death experiences, wow, it wasn't all that known to people, because this exploded as the internet began becoming more. We didn't even have smartphones back then, so now you have all the information in the world in your pocket, and now the way that information is being shared is very, very different as it was in 2001. Only 20 years, but it's been there's been a huge development in the way that we share information. So now when you go into the research, you can find thousands, even more, I don't know, maybe millions of near-death experiences with their very own peculiarities and the all known similarities that are being seriously studied by science. And I've talked about this. I'm going to link it again. I'm going to keep linking this because this is very important, and this is the first scientific statement, consensus statement by experts in the world for the future research of near-death experiences. I'm going to link that somewhere on the screen. So these near-death experiences gathered in Thailand were taken from accounts published in popular Thai literature. So it's popular, another thing. So it's 20 years ago when information wasn't so shared, and this is just like popular Thai literature. So the accounts published in popular Thai literature. So it's just the main beliefs of the people, except for the first 4 cases, one of which is actually a pre-mortem vision, which were provided by Dr. Devanom Wangman. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. President of the Bangkok Institute of Psychical Research. We are indebted to him for his time and efforts in providing this case. So it was this doctor, president of Bangkok Institute of Psychical Research, and he provided this information to Todd Murphy. And there was a translation, I think, made by someone else. We're also indebted to Ms. Sasikarn Santideja of the Languages Institute of Thammasat University, and another gentleman that I'm probably gonna get his name incorrect, and I truly apologize for that. He's a Buddhist monk, Wat Pra Phathom Chedi Nakhon Pathom, Thailand. Further help translating these accounts. I apologize if I cannot pronounce these names, but so the idea is that this doctor provided the accounts with some people translating them, some people from the local region. So now we have a lot of filters right here. We have the fact that this was 20 years ago. We have the fact that these accounts were published in popular Thai literature. This is like the most popular ideas that they have. They don't go deep into them. So you would assume, you would expect that if this is in popular literature, some of the popular themes in their culture are gonna appear and are gonna be normal for them. And even in the translation, these things are gonna pop. These things are gonna come out forward because in the translation is all enveloped in their culture. So there's a lot of filters here that can prevent some real accounts from coming forward. Still, the accounts are very interesting. Now, the reason why I'm focusing on this 11 Thai near-death experiences is because there isn't a lot of reports from Asian near-death experiences, because this is a phenomenon that started happening with Dr. Raymond Moody in the West, in the United States, and then it went forward into Europe. Now it's all worldwide, but the research is mainly done in the West, so you would expect there's not many people interested in these themes in Eastern countries. We don't have the bulk of stories coming from the East, but we have some of them, and this is why I'm gonna be looking into it. The reason why I go into this is because there's the research attached to it, and there's some very interesting conclusions that are coming out from this. And of course, I'm going to be building upon this to come to a larger theory that I've been working on and something that I've been writing. Okay, so case 1, provided Dr. Devanan Monkman. It's a woman, 43 years old. Her NDA began with a visitation by 2 white-robed young men who were not known to the patient. So this is something that usually happens. 2 white-robed young men. So people start seeing these beings, these people, these entities when they are close to dying, and there's also the known pre-mortem visions. It's all in scripture, like people in the West call them, oh, I saw 2 angels, or so on and so forth. There's this idea of different entities that come and make contact with the patient. They inform her it was time to die and that she was be taken for judgment. Now, the ones that I highlight with green are some of the most important ones. So this idea of judgment, I've talked about this before, and if you go into the literature, into research, it's not a judgment. It seems to be a live review. It seems to be something that helps people understand their paths, and this is a key fact of the near-death experiences. A key component of near-death experiences, and I'm gonna base most of this here because the main argument here is why are Eastern NDEs not going into the live review? Why are they? What is this mainly a Western thing? Does it mean that it's not important? Does it mean that it's not really happening? Does it mean it's a hallucination? Well, why would it be mentioned even in Eastern near-death experiences if it wasn't really a thing? Now, there's 2 things. It's mentioned here, and it's not a judgment. I have to remind, and I'm going to keep reminding this is a translation, so the actual concepts can get all complicated. If she did not want to go, one of the figures touched her arm, and then she had an OBE. This is also very common in near-death experiences, in which she flew while holding the figure's arm. She saw the roof of the hospital. As she felt herself fly upwards, she reached the clouds and found herself able to walk in the clouds. Shortly thereafter, she found herself in front of a desk. This is the whole concept. So all of these seems like Christian ideas, that you go into the clouds and you see the gates and there's a desk. This is even in cartoons and so on and so forth, the idea of going to a different place and seeing a desk. Why would there be a desk in the clouds? This seems to be some sort of hallucination. Okay, the figure behind the desk told her that she was the wrong person. I'm taking the first one to sort of set the main commonalities in all of these near-death experiences, because this is one that comes quite often. The idea that they are told they are the wrong person. So in the Western near-death experiences, people are told that it's not their time, they have to go back. Here, they're usually told that they are the wrong person, they got it wrong and they are taken back. The right person was in the same hospital, in a room 3 doors down from the room in which she died. The patient revived shortly after. A nurse working in a room 3 doors down from her collapsed and died. The nurse family refused to allow an autopsy. Okay, so this is a super short story. There's nothing we can gather here, nothing very important, but a few things are the idea of people, entities contacting the patients, the idea of this judgment, quote unquote, which is the so-called live review, an out-of-body experience where she saw the roof or whatever, and some of the commonalities that why would they think of a desk in this cartoony way that sometimes going to heaven is portrayed in the West, the idea of going into the clouds, seeing a gate and seeing a desk and somebody's writing, doing some paperwork about you, and then she's told that she's the wrong person. This was some bureaucratic issue in the process and now she's taken back. It's interesting because, as I said, these are cases that are isolated in a specific region in Thailand, and they are very religiously isolated. I believe 98% of the population believe in the same things, and they have nothing to do with the Christian idea of going into the Western idea, the Western cliche of going into the clouds and seeing a death. So that's very interesting as well. Okay, so case 2, provided Dr. Devanan Monkman. A woman is 58 years old. She was US educated university professor. So she, I assume that she was educated in the US and then went back to her country. It doesn't say that she's a US professor, but it says that she's a United States educated university professor. I'm not sure about what's going on here, but I'm gonna assume that this was mainly in Thailand, and in this one there was influence from the West actually. So the NDE began in her kitchen, beat her when she reached down and turned on the propane that fed her stove. Patient was put in a coffin which was placed in a Buddhist temple. She remained there for 3 days before reviving. 3 days. Now people say that NDEs are something that is happening when the brain is dying and there's no oxygen in the brain. This happened for 3 days and then she came back. There's quite a few NDEs that have been recorded to last as long as 3 days, 2 days, 1 day. It's very interesting because there shouldn't be any sort of hallucination if somebody's been dead for 3 days. It began with an autoscopic out-of-body experience again. She then found herself in front of her house. 2 men in Western clothes appeared and told her to get up. So Western clothes, that's interesting. She's a US educated professor, so there might be this idea. This is why she saw them in Western clothes. 2 men again, 2 entities, 2 beings that made contact with her. So this is the same things that happen in near-death experiences in the West and in the US. It seems the idea, the contact with entities, the out-of-body experience. These are things that are happening. She said they wanted to take her for a walk. She looked back, found the house had disappeared. The path in front of her was misty. The weather was cool and pleasant. She saw crowds of people from which emerged an older man who she referred to as uncle, father's elder brother, Pong. So another of the commonalities in these near-death experiences from Eastern countries is that they do not see a tunnel. Like people in the West, they see some sort of a tunnel, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. In Eastern near-death experiences, they see roads, and they walk the roads, they walk the paths. So this is further into the conclusion. They talk about the idea that this represents for them the changing of setting, if we are indeed talking about dimensions. This is the way that they represent it, the way that they conceive it, by walking these paths instead of going through tunnels like people in the West. So all of these, as we've been studying in near-death experiences, are very personalized experiences that help people. And it seems it depends on the culture, maybe not even the individuals, but maybe the culture as a whole, which is even more interesting. Okay, Pong told her that he was dead and was there to welcome her. He had in fact died the day after she was bitten by a cobra. So the day after, so we have to remember she remained in the coffin for 3 days. So 1 day after she was bitten, the first day that she was in the coffin, this man died. And then this is how she saw her accordingly. 2 men not described came up to take her, quote unquote, for judgment. We have this idea of the judgment now. I've been making this. I want to make this clear. Why would they talk? So some of the skeptics are saying, well, the right review is nothing because it doesn't happen in Eastern near-death experiences. Why is it mentioned then? If it wasn't really a thing, why is it mentioned at all by these beings who consistently come to people in near-death experiences? So she came before a judge, not described, who told her that although her name was the right name, it was actually another person of the same name who was to have been taken. Again, is the same thing. It's not they're not told to go back, they're simply told that they have the wrong person. This is based on their ideas of this judge, of this coming to this book of life, and that they're gonna be judged. And so they got the wrong person and they have to go back. He instructed the 2 to take her back. The patient resisted, and as before, she went back to know if heaven and hell were real. That's an absolutely natural reaction. If somebody was in that situation with conscious awareness, this is the biggest question. So is there some reality to the stories and the and the ideas that people have of the afterlife. The judge instructed the guy to take her on a tour of heaven and hell. She was taken to heaven first. Her experience of heaven was of a cool place where birds, flowers, and beautiful houses were found in abundance. This happens also in Western and the East. People have seen these cities of gold, cities of light, cities of abundance, colors that they've never seen before, so on and forth, so on and so forth. So hell was a place where souls were tortured in various ways, with whippings specifically mentioned. After her tour was over, she revived and began to beat on the lid of the coffin. The monks in the temple ran away, frightened, thinking that she was a ghost. One of her family members opened the coffin and let her out. So the idea of hell is also present in most of these stories, which is interesting. I made a video about, well, I'll link it in just a second. I just want to go over it a little bit. So in Western near-death experiences, some people have seen these quote-unquote hells. They're different from person to person. So for some, it's just a feeling of negativity and a very heavy feeling, and they think they are in some sort of negative astral realm. Other people see the traditional fire and these demons with forklifts and everything you would expect from a traditional historical representation or illustration or piece of art from what people conceive to be hell. Now, in this specific Eastern tradition, as I'm going to be going in the future, they had the same idea of a hell which was very similar to Dante Alighieri's hell in his work. Now, the religion that we are talking about was created in the medieval period, which means that it could have had influence from the Western writings of hell, which is interesting. But now it's very complicated because I believe that there's some sort of a purpose for people to see these quote-unquote hells. We might, if we're talking about non-physical existence created by the collective consciousness, by thoughts from people, which can actually create ethereal places, to put it in a way. I'm gonna be going into this further in the future. I've been working on a book that is gonna come out soon, and I'm gonna be going further into this. I don't want to just leave it like that, but this is the best way that I can talk about this right now. So I'm gonna link, I made a video about this, some of my theories, some of my ideas based on the research, and I mentioned the research in this video about these negative near-death experiences, hellish near-death experiences, and bad trips, as it's called in the realm of entheogens, so DMT and mushrooms and whatnot. Why people are seeing demons, why people are going to hell, why people think they are possessed. All of this negativity, where does it come from? We start talking about egregores and whatnot. I talk about, made a video, I'm gonna link it somewhere on the screen. But I'm just gonna say, just to finish this little thought, that it seems that we are creating these hellish places. It seems that they serve a purpose. And all of this is a structure. As we can see, we're only in case 2, but the themes are repeating themselves. Rough band, some sort of a judgment, certain very specific things, out-of-body experiences, the non-physicality of the experience, realm, so on and so forth. All of this seems to be structures. There might be a purpose for these quote-unquote hells, and as I'm gonna go into further in the stories, in some of the stories, and usually what happens in these hellish near-death experiences or stories is that people come to the realization that they can get out of there. They can completely deny the idea and go into what they call the light or a different realm or these heavens and so on and so forth. Everything seems to be made by the subconscious mind, but there's a purpose to it. It's not simply a hallucination. I'm gonna be going into that in the future. Alright, so this video has been going for a while, longer than I thought it was gonna take me, but these first 2 cases actually give us a lot to take in, and they perfectly set up the basis for all of the rest of the stories, of which some of them are very in-depth and go further down the line than these 2 first ones. So for a bit of a TLDR, a bit of a summary and the basis of this study, we can see that in both cases there's the meeting of entities, just like in Western scenarios. While some people in the West call them angels, beings of light, so on and so forth, usually in the East they just say 2 entities, 2 beings, two people in Western clothes, or as in the further stories that I'm going to be reviewing, they call them Jamatuts. which is the beings that are in their mythologies. So there's this meeting of entities. This quote-unquote judgment is mentioned. What some people in the West like to call the live review. So this is my argument. If like people are saying there are no live review in Eastern near-death experiences, well, why is it mentioned even? And I think in some of them there is some sort of a live review in a very interesting way, in different ways, which is not the common digital panoramic view of film that people have in the West. But there is some sort of a live review, and the judgment here is mentioned. Now, as I said, there's also the possibility that people don't go further enough into the experience to go through the actual live review. They're usually told, which is another of the things that we can conclude, is they're always told that they got the wrong person, and now they're going back. Similarly to Western stories where people are told it's not your time, you have things to do, and then they are sent back. The experience doesn't go all the way. They're still somehow connected to their bodies, perhaps, or something of that nature, and the stories don't go fully into it. And also, we have very few stories from Eastern countries, from Asian near-death experience. I said, as the research, and specifically given that we just had this year on April the consensus statement for the future research on near-death experiences from experts around the world, with a basis on science, which I made a video about. I'm gonna link it somewhere on the screen. You can find all of these attached links below. All of these things are gonna keep going forward. There's gonna be an ongoing research moving forward, so hopefully we're gonna have more Asian near-death experiences. But with these 11 cases, we can start making the case that there's something going on here, and I am very excited to go into it in the future, as the conclusions are very, very interesting. And yes, there is some sort of a live review, and the purpose remains, as I specified in that first video that I made regarding the meaning of life and the purpose of life and the purpose of individual existence and individual life. The last thing that is in the summary, a couple of things. Instead of tunnels, they see roads, which means that they are transferring from, perhaps if the existence of dimensions, as many speculate, is real, this is the way that they transfer. Instead of seeing the tunnel and seeing the light, they go through a road, which is more common with the culture of these Asian countries. Another thing is the existence of hell. Hell for Thai culture in this very specific religion is sort of like the underworld from the Greek mythology. People just go through it while they're transferring from life to death. It's part of the culture. It's not like they are being punished straight away. While they are in this quote-unquote hell, that's where their quote-unquote judgment is conducted by this Yama, this deity of the dead. And according to the culture, this is the way. This is why all of the stories contain hell. As I said, I spoke about this hell in Altered Stories of Consciousness before, so the links are below. So in the next few videos regarding to this specific playlist or this specific topic, I'm going to be going into the more in-depth stories where more of the commonalities with the Western stories arise. If people downloading information about the reality of the universe and so on and so forth. There is the being of light. There is the live review. All of them are present in different ways, which seems to be the personalized experience. But at the end of the day, there seems to be the structure. All of it remains, and I'm going to be going into it in the future. If you're on the path of finding the truth about reality and our purpose as humans on Earth, the information that I have to share concerns you. After a lifetime of research in philosophies ranging from Buddhism to the occult, I've encountered themes and patterns along some baffling information that is beginning to be seriously studied by science. A Rational Divine Outline, The Ghost of Jesus, is the first iteration of this project, where I analyze the message of Jesus without dogmatism, fanaticism, or religious bias. You can find my work available on Amazon on the link below. If you find this work valuable, consider subscribing, sharing, and following me on social media, as it'll help others in the same path to find this information. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.